Hi there, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. My name is Kathy Futrell, and today we're going to be doing castles and continuing our perspective exercise. We're at the Church of the Palms, so come join us. All right, today we're going to paint a castle. And we're going to try to get some sky, and we're doing landscape in many ways, but we're practicing our perspective once again. So if I show you, this is just a finished example, and I have drawn it and thought about where am I going to place the castle. So again, we've been working with perspective and knowing that there is a vanishing point and that things converge at a point. And we practiced a lot of just thinking about that 1 and 2 point perspective. Oh, I wanted to show you this lovely little watercolor. I don't see Julia today, but this was from Tuesday, and today is Wednesday. But this was yesterday's beautiful watercolor that was on my calendar from John Singer Sargent that we've been talking about. And look at how the buildings go straight down to. Actually, the bridge becomes the focal point, or maybe it's even the tower here. But all of these lines of the buildings are moving toward a vanishing point. And we don't really think about that. Sometimes we just see it and we know it's correct. But it's the way artists use their eye to draw you in to what they want you to look at. Even the boats tend to point in that direction, and the people are moving across toward the bridge. And the bridge is the lightest thing next to something dark. And this has lovely water reflections, and so here's what we're going to do today. So I'll be sketching here. Maybe that I'll just jump right into sketching. And I had several references for castles. This is one that we could actually do as a vertical painting with a little bit, I'm tempted to even go with this idea, which is on one of your references. It's this particular castle, and I guess it's this one right here. But there are many views of these Irish castles, and some, I was on location when I painted this one the first time in an acrylic painting, which I no longer have. So I loved that castle, and I can't even remember the name of it. Anybody know the name of that? It starts with a D, like, it's in Scotland. It's in Scotland. And this castle, I can't remember about this one, but look at the romance in this dark and light painting. They're really fun to do. All right, so let me just decide what it is I want to do. This was my first choice in painting today, and I think I will show, does this work if I turn the paper like that? Does that you still see the whole sheet of paper? You know, I'm tempted to try to do something a little different than what I did here. Maybe even just drawing this castle and getting the background and some water reflection. So this is what I might just do. And here is the photograph, the actual photograph. So maybe I'll just look at this. So it starts with the hillside and the line for the water. And I'm trying to think of my 3 or 4 different shapes and where my focal point will be. And the castle off to one side. So I'm going to begin with a sketch. You know, until this very moment, I was definitely going to do the other castle. But then I decided, oh, this might be kind of, here's perspective. This is a little piece of perspective, which isn't very much, but it's kind of a nice piece. The land kind of comes up like this. And I tend to, when I'm drawing, I block things in and then I make adjustments. This is a crenellated tower, which means that there are little slots like this. Crenellation is where the archers would defend the castle. They would be protected by the rest of the wall. Now there's a very strong shadow. Shh. Now Jim Futrell, if you're back there and you can tell that I'm crooked, you bring the ruler up and get me straight. Would you pretty please? Did you hear me, honey? No. Hi. Welcome. So I'm doing a little bit of the landscape. This is going to be a shadowed area. This too will be a bit of a shadowed area. I don't know why I'm leaving out the rest of the castle, but I'm getting to it. And I'm thinking of it as blocks of shapes, very simple blocks of shapes. Right here, we have a pitch that shows the edge of the roof with a chimney. These castles would need, obviously, some source of heat, and this would be angling down, and this would be angling down just a tiny bit. It's a very subtle little change, but it is what happens with perspective. This is in shadow. This is the top of that roof, and we have another chimney, and it has another angle with a shadow. And shadows help us to define the shapes of things. Another piece right here. We have another little pitch with a roof shape that joins to that point, and a window, kind of working my way around the top of this, and then there's a pointed, we almost need a magnifying glass to see this, a pointed shape for this tower. More crenellation. Sometimes I can't quite tell what the architecture is doing, so I just draw where the shadows are because it will help to totally define what is actually going on here. So I'm right here with this shadow right here, and it has a window and another window. Are these showing up? This
Yes.
Is it showing up? You can see. Okay.
Yes.
So this tower, this is a little less complicated than drawing, if you will, this particular one. However, this is kind of interesting too, because you have these shapes that do read as shadow shapes, and then we have a light shape here, and that comes down. We have the same thing going on. The light source is striking. This causes a shadow here, and it helps to define the shape of that roof. So maybe this isn't so complicated after all, now that I'm into this one. This one's more complicated than I realize. But you will have a choice, and you will choose the one you think would be the most interesting to do. So I have that, and now I see a little ridge here. I know that these castles are made of stone, so in some points I'm going to be making texture to suggest the stones. And this, again, is a little more crenellation, and this is a shadow, and this even has some crenellation in it. All right, so I do not see, maybe there's one window here, and I'm looking at the landscape and the shoreline. And this shoreline, by the way, is very similar to the other one that I worked on. And the land, and this continues, oh, this is more architecture. I was thinking it was landscape, but when it has a sharp edge, you can tell, oh, that's not a tree, that's a structure. So there is a definite shape, and then there's this lovely light green tree right here, and other trees, bushes probably, and then there's another form that comes out. All right, so there's this lovely cloud here too. I don't know, we can make our own interpretations. I'm doing some lines to help focus toward the castle. Now, here's what we have to do. We have to use either a ruler or a straight edge, and I have a ruler here, so this makes more sense to me. Where you have the castle drawn, you just simply start representing the angle, maybe that's too, nope, that looks about right. It gets exaggerated in the water. This gets drawn out. This gets drawn out a little bit. So we're just mimicking what we see in the water. And we just make these very long, these suggested vertical lines. And so these towers, for instance, are going to get, it's going to be a little bit blurry, but here's what we do. And then we know that we're going to shade And so we look at the shadows and we just sort of put in a few lines that will help us remember where we're going to be doing those darks and lights in the water. Okay. All right. So the other thing is there'll be some nice lines across the water. So let's start painting. And this is going to be a landscape, and we're going to have fun. Oh my gosh. Less stress. Just put in a beautiful sky. And
That was a joke.
now, this is where the fun begins, is when you add the water to the paper and you go, okay, magic is going to happen. So I'm using the block today. Usually I have my piece of watercolor paper taped to a cardboard, but I'm using the block because I've got a little place here where I can get it off later when it dries. And this will keep it nice and flat for me. So I'm going to work with some lovely blues in my sky. Now this is a blue sky. It's a very blue sky. And I want a lot of cerulean, obviously, for my blue, and some cobalt, and maybe a little ultramarine here. Actually, that's Joe's blue, and this is my ultramarine. And do I want any purple? Purple can get scary, but why not? It adds a little dark for the top. So I really like to start with something kind of dramatic at the top with a darker blue, and then start working into my lighter color. And I just added a little water because I don't want this to get too dark. While it's wet, you can scoot it around and just let it run together. I'm just going to let it be like that, and I'm just tilting it just a little to let it run. So in this case, I allowed. I think I must have touched something up here, because I have a little watermark. But it's cerulean blue, and you can see other blues. And sometimes I like to drag so that they're forming a direction toward the castle. Up here, I think it's fine just to leave some clouds like that. Now, because I have the blue on my brush, I want to do the water as well, and I have a lot of blue mountains going on here, so I'm going to just paint the blue across the bottom as where the sky would be. And I'm going to just do washes here rather than wetting the paper so much, but I will come almost to where the castle is with my sky colors. I think that'll do it. Now, I'm also seeing, and my brush just happens to have a nice dry brush. You want to keep this very flat. I'm doing a little bit of streaking here. I know I'm going to have to do the darks, but there is a bit of light blue running all the way across here. And those are just probably some spots in the water that have light catching it just right. So I hope I can keep those, because I'll have to work some darks around them. Let's do the background, because typically in a watercolor like this, you're going to go from light background to foreground. Now, I have something happening here that I'm not real happy about. See this bloom? So I dry my brush, and I'm just going to drag that through. I don't mind it being in some places, but I think I'd rather have it smoothed out a little bit. And this is definitely the water reflecting the sky. So I don't want that. I did not want that blue. So let's do the mountains. And these mountains are going to be very dark. I say very dark. I'm going to use my ultramarine and a little bit of purple. And if you don't have a good purple, just add a little red to your color. I might want to switch brushes, even though I could work with, besides the purple. Oh, Julia, you are here. Good. Besides the purple, I want to put a little bit of green off to the side. And the green is just going to be hinted at in this distant blue. Okay, I still want more ultramarine, a touch more purple. Ultramarine, maybe I'm getting way too dark now. Let's see. I know I'm going to want to take the little smaller brush And I'm sort of catching these shapes with the brush, and before this has a chance to dry. Let's see, that's going to have to go all the way to the edge. Okay. Now there's some land here I can sort of see going on, and I am going to switch to a smaller brush to work this before this all dries. And this has some green, so this is where I'm seeing some of the green, and right through here. So I'm building something dark for the background. Gosh, it seems like we're going to be doing mostly, forget the palette, the castle, that's just going to be an afterthought, isn't it? It's going to be what we do at the very end to say, oh, there is a castle. It's the background that's going to support what's going on here. So the difference of painting in watercolor, of course, and acrylic, which I've only done this in acrylic, castle painting that is that you would paint all of your background, and you could, of course I would paint around where the castle was typically, but in watercolor you have to be quite careful of keeping your shape clean as you move around it. Now there is some nice little stuff going on here at the top, and I'm just going to give it a little wiggle and try to interpret what I see in this distant mountain landscape. There's some, as I said, I see some green, and I also see a little bit of brown going on. I think that's just the coloration of the changing landscape, and I do want it to have some variation. That's kind of a nice color. Sometimes you never know what it's going to do until you do it. And it is still blue, quite blue, but I thought, well, I had a little bit of this brown-green. I will keep going with it a little ways and then come back to my blue. That's called atmospheric perspective, and that's why the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina and other places that have mountains off in the distance have this beautiful range of value, and blueness is where the particles in the atmosphere are, it's like they can't break through to give their true color. They're not, we know they're green trees, or perhaps they're even other colors, but for some reason it's the blue that prevails in the coloring as it comes into our range of vision. And so a lot of early Renaissance paintings, have you ever noticed that when they started doing perspective, they too were keenly aware of the blue mountains in all kinds of paintings. So here we are. I have to mix a little more, and more than likely we'll try to get this pretty solid here. I will have to come back and darken this again, but we'll go with this for now. We'll have to do the same thing in the water, and then after that we'll have to do, I knew I would do that. Purple is so dominant. Now, I did want to get dark, but I don't think I'm ready for that. Not at all. So, here, that. Okay, this is very dark, and I do need to get dark. So, here we go. I'm trying to decide what is this little thing right here on the castle. I think it's a little tower, a tiny little tower. So.
For a person?
It's too big for a person. Yeah, I think it's too big for a person. But it is definitely something there. So I'm not sure how I'm going to handle this cloud now that I decided to put it in. And I'm straightening out my wall if I can as I go here. And this, and then I'm trying to blend my next color into what's going on up here. Well, I guess the best thing to do is to wet this. And maybe just lift to keep some of the light at the top to suggest clouds. Now, I'm still trying to fix here and pulling some shapes into this landscape. I'm using a Kilimanjaro paper, which is very close to an Arches 140, and that is a cold press. Now, if you use a hot press, you get a totally different effect, or if you use a rough, you get a different effect. I think that's not quite looking like the cloud I had in mind. So what I'm going to do is let that dry, and I think I can soften that edge by just scrubbing on it when it dries. The other thing that I have to do is introduce a little bit more of that darker color over here. And then we'll do the water, and then we'll hit the castle. And then we will paint our own castles. And I wouldn't be surprised if you would choose to do the other one. I like some of the variations that are going on up here in the landscape, and it's a good idea. What I just did was drag some of that same color up here so that it wouldn't seem so foreign. And this has a more of a slope in this direction. So again, that will help to lead our eye down to the castle. And I'm just going to darken this all up. All right, now the color here that's going into the water, I may only do one side and then do some of the castle, because a lot of times sitting here and doing this forever and ever takes too much time, too much of your time. So I think you'll get the point across. Something that does happen with water is that you have to be prepared to kind of change, kind of swipe across, get a little bit of this softness going on. And of course there's some tan in here from the castle itself that I'll be introducing. But just that little bit of water helps to soften what's going on in the coloration. Okay, now this has, I'm looking now at the reflections in the water. This line is pretty straight. And it also matches what's going on here. And I'm just trying to figure out how to best finish off what's happening here. My brush has a little dry brush in it, and that helps to create these lines, the lines that are really necessary to make, let me just do a little bit over here. And there is the top and the side. Again, I need to make these lines as straight as I can get them. And this is pretty dry brush over here. All right. I will continue down this way, but not right now. So this will be happening pretty much what I've just done here will continue through there. And I'm going to switch to the castle and the landscape. I'll probably do more on this water. This feels like it's way too light right down here. This is starting to look good, and I like that, and I need to soften that edge. So the castle color is a tan, and I can work with a little bit of, I see some orange in there too. I could just take some light colors like my yellow and my orange and my burnt sienna, and just, well, I want to gray it a little bit, so maybe I will pick up a little bit of blue and let that help it turn toward gray. Is it a gray or is it a brown? Boy, look how bright. This one seems to have a lot more yellow color in that castle. Gosh, maybe I like that better. But then I like this mountain better, the colors in here for the mountain, but you can pick and choose. That's the beauty of what we're doing today. All right, so the castle has stonework, and I'm going to start with just the wash of, my drawing is pretty defined, My pencil lines I leave in because it helps me with what my painting will, my finished product to the painting. Oh, there's even another little piece right here that doesn't show up except for right there. I like that little piece too. So we just have to use our eyeballs when we're painting like this. Yeah, this even looks a little wide, but it's a slightly different angle. Okay, so the same thing kind of happens in the water, but the feeling is not so much in this direction as it is in this direction. Or when we paint the reflection going on, it tends to look more like that. And so a little water maybe. And I'm just giving the strokes for the color in the what's happening in the water. The same color of the castle. Of course, I got to go darker in a few places, much darker than that. But this helps us to read the reflection, and there will be some darker pieces going on. So let's make a shadow for, now I use the burnt sienna and a little bit of this darker blue for this side. It's pretty dark. I'm questioning myself if that's not too dark, but I don't think it is. It's darker really than the background. And the crenellations. A flat brush will help you sometimes better than a round brush, especially for flat sides, although I'm wondering, maybe I should switch to my round brush. Okay, so here is that shadow side. I really want more blue in it. So you can interject the blue while it's still wet. And the shadow here, and this edge of the chimney, and that. Yeah, I really want to switch to my little round brush for getting that little detail in. I just feel more comfortable with getting that shape right. Blue and brown give us a beautiful dark gray. Always my go-to for gray, dark gray. Blue, brown. See, this is more blue and this is more brown. And just depends. And this allows you to put in those little crenellations that are going on here. All right, so there's my chimney, and there's the shadow side. Here is this tower that has a shadow going on. I can see a little texture going on in that wall. And of course, these are coming up pretty dark as well. And we've got to put them in on the water reflection. And then we get some greens going and some landscapes going. The problem with showing people how to paint is that I love to do this, but I keep reminding myself that you know, I'm showing you, but you need to see. And I keep telling myself, no, I got to do a little more, because then you will think I can't paint. And I want to prove that, oh yes, I can do it. I can. All right, where am I going to put those guys? I need to figure that out, because they're not as. I think they're right in here. Okay, and then I think there's some green here, and that's really strange. This gets lost a little bit. This part of the castle is not quite as strong. Maybe this comes up right here. Okay, so I just had to tell myself, where do all these dark places go in the water reflection? And of course, this is part of that. This is part of that shadow that's going on here. And I see a lot of streaks that come like this in the water. So this is what some of the reflections will be doing, filling in these darker spots. There is some other things going on here, but I think that that's not brown right there. That would be blue. Okay, so I haven't finished that side, but this is just getting in where those dark places are going to be. And sometimes just doing a little wash over helps to soften up those painted strokes. And we will do more ripples down here too, but see, that helps the water. Now, to finish up the castle and the landscape, I need a little orange, I need a pop of color, because this is going to be a bit of orange, and there will not be much showing in the water because it's on the roof, except maybe that little cap. That has a different color. And so there's some shadows that fall on that. And this chimney is a lighter shade. Maybe I made my chimney a little bright. I mean my roof a little bright, but I sure do like that. This is going to be dark. And this is going to be dark. And this is going to be dark. And this is dark. This is dark. So we start adding these details, start adding some of the details, especially these little windows, which will help our design. And where, I don't even really see where these windows are. Okay, but they will be repeated in the water. Okay, I'm not quite through with my building, but you're starting to see it take shape. And I'm going to do some greenery, and then we will begin to paint. So the greenery is going to be, and since I have this brown, and there is a lot of color in the earth that's here, which is just meeting the water. And I see just a nice white edge here where this earth meets the water. And then I see a path up here and the green, and honestly I would clean a little bit out at some point so I'd have a nice place to make another puddle. But my Skip's green is a lovely, lovely yellow green, or you just mix yellow with your viridian to get this green. I am not seeing a whole lot of green in the reflection, but I just felt like sticking some in. Now these are your trees, and after we do the light green, we'll start putting in some darker greens. And this does come up in front of the castle, so surely there'd be some here. Repeated. Okay, and then my darker greens are going to be my viridian with some blue and some brown. That blue and brown. Oh, that's a lovely dark green. There's a lot of dark green going on in the background here and around, sort of like where is the light must be coming from here because we have shadows on this side, so our shadows for the trees will be on this edge right here. All right. Okay, so I have a lot of little detail and some cleaning up to do, but I'm going to stop with the painting. Jim, can you stop my camera? So you're going to get this much done, and I might show just a little more detail at the very end, okay? Like with some stonework and some more reflections in the water. All right, are we ready to paint?